So Gothamites, Season 5, Episode 1 is here. Finally, Gotham is back. So we need to dive straight into this review for Episode 1, Year Zero. What is up, Gothamites? Welcome back to a brand new Gotham Season 5 review. It feels weird saying that. We're finally here to talk about the first episode of Season 5. And right off the bat, I have to say that it was a solid episode. I wouldn't say it was absolutely spectacularly amazing or anything like that. I feel like this set up a very good foundation for this season. Had a couple of really cool moments in it, especially that helicopter scene, which I found quite powerful, and a couple of others throughout the episode. Other than that, as I said, it set up this kind of strong structure for the rest of the season. Explained the situation, explained a few other things. I felt like a few moments were kind of predictable just based off all of the coverage we've done over the past few months. We've obviously known and been prepared for a little bit of stuff that's been coming, but that's not to say that this episode wasn't packed with a little bit of surprise. And I will also be covering the trailer, hopefully today, but maybe tomorrow. Be on the lookout for that video. It's technically a trailer for the next episode, but it more shows the scope of the rest of the season. It even shows the bat suit very, very briefly in that trailer. So it's not actually a true episode 2 trailer like we're used to getting. I'm wondering if they'll do that after next week's episode for episode 3. But apart from that, it only included a few scenes for episode 2 next week. And then, you know, rest of the clips were like scattered throughout the rest of Season 5. But other than that, everyone, be sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date with all Gotham Season 5 related content for the rest of this 5th and final season. And other than that, if you do go on to enjoy this video, go ahead and like it, as it really does help the channel out. So as I've discussed and covered in previous videos, No Man's Land, or should I say Gotham Season 5 Episode 1, did start off at the end of No Man's Land. John Stevens actually teased us, if I remember correctly, with this information at New York Comic Con, and it was like No Man's Land Day 391. We saw essentially the Riddler getting prepared, Penguin getting prepared, we saw Harvey drinking at his bar, we saw Jim where? I'll give you a couple of guesses, anyone? Of course, the GCPD. He wouldn't really be anywhere else. It was cool seeing this. I suppose if you haven't paid too much attention to Gotham behind the scenes stuff, you might not know what this is on about. But we see them all fighting this kind of military force at the end. And no, I don't think that's the actual official government or anything like that. You would have to think that this is Bane and his men, because if you didn't know already, Bane is kind of like the antagonist of this season if you were to look at it in the long run. And that is why these villains are teaming up or allying themselves temporarily with the GCPD, because they must realize at some point this season that the stakes are too big and Bane is being a pain in everyone's ass. But moving swiftly on to present day, we go all the way back to day 87. So it's just around like almost a year into the future, that first scene. But we obviously see Jim talking to the government. He explains the situation in Gotham. I like how he drops there's been no sightings of Jeremiah Valeska. They've already painted before this season in how he's like the bogeyman out there somewhere. But we'll talk about that little Ecco scene later on. But essentially, government are like, we can't do anything, sorry. Now, of course, Selina needs an operation before, like, the spine collapses in on itself or something like that. And they gave us a little explanation of why they didn't make it out of Gotham, because the bridges blew. I think maybe if the season was a bit longer, as I've mentioned before, they would have dragged the storyline out a bit longer. But, you know, Selina will get healed by the witch that was teased in this episode by, like, that nurse, who, by the way, just reminds me of, you know, that Jerome cult follower way back, who, was it Bruce went to see, was it Jim? I can't remember. You guys probably know who I'm on about. Maybe a picture's appearing on screen. She was wearing very, you know, cult-esque makeup, you know, Jerome cult. So, either way, she was like the witch. And you would have to think that is Ivy, because we did get a teaser of Bruce going to see Ivy, and she was like, oh, I wonder what will grow from you. He might get in a spot of trouble, but he might appeal to Ivy saying, look, come on, Selina was your friend, she's looked out for you. He will come out the other end, he'll come out with a potion, but as we know from teasers and trailers, Selina won't come out the same way. She will be a lot more feral, she'll be even trying to kill that mutant gang leader we see Bruce and Selina against later on in the season. It's going to be really exciting. fighting, but, you know, Bruce has to sacrifice a part of his own friend's life, really. And as I kind of said, Selina in this episode was one of my favorite kind of moments. It was really, I have to admit, like I was on, you know, borderline tears, seeing how hard she was struggling. But throughout the episode, you really saw her kind of struggle to come to terms with the reality of her situation, even trying to bark back at Bruce saying, you know, Jeremiah shot me to get to you. She wishes that she even got killed by Jeremiah, and she even tries to actually do that later on in the episode. As I said, if you've paid a bit of attention to Gotham news and stuff like that, you know that Cameron Beacondova said that Selina does have a suicide attempt. She tries to get that scalpel off the nurse's table, and that was really hard to watch. It really, really was. It was really emotional, and I have to say Cameron Beacondova's acting this episode was very, very, very good. And yeah, as I said, it's really hard to watch and very sad, but you know, it will come out the other end, but she won't be the same. Now, what is Nigma up to this episode? Well, he is waking up all around Gotham. Now, initially he is blaming his alter ego, Idiot Ed, I think is what he called it, for doing this to him. I believe he will eventually blame Penguin for it, and he'll seek answers from him. But there wasn't so much to him this episode. I'm definitely intrigued as to where this storyline is going to go. I feel like it's going to be kind of predictable in the sense that, oh, he's going to find himself. Obviously, he will. We got the teaser towards the end of No Man's Land. He is back in the Riddler suit. Feels like he's, you know, found his identity again. So it does feel like, I have to admit, it does feel like a rehash of previous seasons. Oh, Nigma is trying to figure himself out, but at least this season it will be the definitive moment. I'm not shitting on this storyline or anything like that, just saying it does feel familiar. I mean, skipping right to the end of the episode for him, he woke up in a dumpster, same thing again, but he lost his patience even more, and he's like, why are you doing this to me, or what is happening to me? I am intrigued to see where it goes. I think he will look like Dorky Ed for quite a bit of the season, and as I said, won't get to his final look right towards the end, maybe around episode 10 or so, since the time jump has now been, I believe, moved forward to episode 12. But either way, excited for Ed, but he's not the most excitable thing for me this season by a long shot, just because I don't feel like there's anything new, proper new happening with him, but it's still going to be fun to see him turn into the Riddler for the final time. The final time. Now, just adding to the context of No Man's Land and how this episode really is just meant to put all the ammo in the gun for letting the audience know the situation of Gotham. Obviously, the GCPD running out of food. Supplies are just low everywhere in Gotham. Not just ammunition, but that is a big thing of everything. For example, Barbara's got a lot of food, but not a lot of guns, you know, or ammo or whatever. But Penguin has got a lot of guns, but not a lot of food. So, you know, even though there are sectors and villains of Gotham, I like how, you know, they kind of are necessary at the same time. And I think Jim knows that, which is why later on in the episode, you know, Harvey was a bit annoyed that he didn't shoot to kill and he shot Penguin in like the shin or something like that. I think Jim knows that he kind of needs Penguin where he is, distributing out certain things for a little bit of time until obviously he can come full force and take over Gotham, or back Gotham from the villainous sectors. But we've seen this scene before. Episode 1 even came out of Gordon and Bruce talking on the rooftop. Really like the scene, obviously foreshadowing Commissioner Gordon and the Batman. But yeah, I've discussed this before. Essentially mentions night vision goggles that Lucius has got to give to the GCPD. Bruce gets one of these himself, and that leads me to talk about in the episode where we see Scarecrow break in that GCPD checkpoint, which I thought was really cool. You guys know how I feel about Scarecrow's costume design. Kicks ass. I love the crows. Can't wait to see more from him. As Scarecrow says himself, show these fools the face of fear. So when Selina was actually getting operated on, that's when Bruce went after, like, you know, at the same time Jim was facing off against Scarecrow's crows, trying to defend the GCPD supply place. We had Bruce going after the men arriving in the basement at the hospital. I'm guessing trying to steal medical supplies. But I really like the way they shot this. It couldn't be more obvious that they're trying to foreshadow Bruce's kind of Batman stealth in night vision mode. Obviously, he's not Batman yet. This isn't the 10-year time jump, but we got to see him take out guys. We got to see bad thugs look around, see their friends get taken out, and then Bruce come in and then take another guy out. That is awesome. That is what I want to see throughout this season. But going back to Penguin for a minute, and this leads me to talk about Barbara and like how they were like kind of trading for rounds and stuff like that. I like how Barbara foreshadows Penguin's future character, if you will, by saying Ozzy wants to get fat on a ribeye. We even see Oswald in like the next scene or so eating a steak, possibly a ribeye steak. But you know, even though supplies are short, he gives it to Edward the dog because it was overcooked or whatever. But, you know, this kind of leads in that whole storyline of Tabitha in the episode because she's not happy about Penguin, you know, trading with the Sirens. Even though it's necessary, you can understand where she's coming from because Penguin killed Butch. Now, I have to admit, when we got to the helicopter scene, because Mr. Billionaire Boy Bruce Wayne is sent in a helicopter, thank the Lord for Mr. Bruce Wayne, this, you know, led to a really cool moment. Obviously, everyone is going to go crazy over that supply helicopter. But the most interesting thing of this scene for me is when Tabitha got the drop on Penguin. Now, naturally, she got that bullet beforehand. This kind of was the bullet that would be setting up her own failure. And I have to admit, I wasn't necessarily actually expecting this in this moment. I thought it was almost too predictable, but it was really well shot, this scene, and I felt like it was actually really sad. Now, believe it or not, Tabitha hasn't been the most important character to me. Even though she's been on the show for a long time, I haven't really, if you asked me beforehand, I wouldn't particularly massively care if she died or not. But when, you know, her gun failed, or the bullet failed, shall I say, and that is when Penguin stabbed her, that was a really well shot scene. I love it when scenes like that, you know, implement the right kind of music, the slow-mo where you're like, no! It was really, really cool, especially when Barbara came in with a freaking battle cry. That was dramatic, and, you know, I really, really loved this moment from Barbara. I personally think it was a good decision to include this death in the first episode. It made something quite impactful, you know, really impactful. On top of the Selina stuff this episode happen in episode 1. Whether you're kind of a big fan of Tabitha or not, there's got to be some big Tabitha fans out there. This death will matter to a lot of people, but even if you don't care about that character so much like myself, this was still actually a really sad moment. As I said, Barbara's acting here was really, really good. Tabitha didn't want her to retaliate. She was like, Barbara, don't, because, you know, naturally, as we saw, she got screwed. And as I've mentioned before in previous videos, I think Barbara is going to be very interesting this season. I really liked this episode. This was a really cool moment. And I'm sorry to all you Tabitha fans out there, but this obviously sparks a massive plot of revenge in terms of Barbara on Penguin. So maybe it might very well be Barbara who gives Penguin his eye injury, thus leading into the monocle in the 10-year time jump. One other mystery in this scene is that they kind of made a subtle deal as to who shot down the chopper. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below who you think that is, because it wasn't Penguin. Obviously it wasn't the GCPD. I doubt it was Scarecrow or anyone like that. So who do you think it was? Was it their friends from across the water or whatever they were saying, across the river? I don't know where it was. That who contacted Jim later on the radio. And that leads me to this scene. We had Ecco trolling in the GCPD. So obviously she's not a full proto Harley Quinn yet. That will probably happen by a couple of episodes time. We're going to probably see her, you know, get even more twisted by Jeremiah. I know Jeremiah will be in episode 4 onwards, so maybe it'll be a little bit longer. But I think before we see Jeremiah, we're going to see Ecco do Jeremiah's bidding. And that probably was to just troll the GCPD by putting the Jerome kind of cult symbol on the map. Now, I was actually kind of surprised by that, because beforehand, I was wondering when we saw this clip in a previous trailer, would Jeremiah really want to use the Jerome cult symbol? Quite simply because, you know, it's Jerome. He isn't a big fan of his brother. He wants to do everything better, but maybe he is embracing that symbol still and wants to do everything Jerome had planned, but bigger and better in his own way. Now, we did have that kid who arrived at the GCPD after traveling through all the sectors of Gotham, or Harvey said he must have traveled through all the sectors. He looked pretty beaten up and like exhausted. I do know that this actor is kind of consistent throughout quite a bit of the season, and I'm not sure if he's referencing to the creepy mother and orphan scene that we got at the end of last season. I don't think that he's that particular kid who was stabbing all the bodies, but he might be referencing to that lady in the creepy mask and all the other kids and what he was saying and how all of that stuff was going down. But we'll be seeing quite a bit more of this kid to come in future episodes. But guys, that is the gist of the episode, essentially. It was quite, as I said at the beginning, a solid episode. Nothing mind-blowing, but there was a very couple of important moments in the episode, like the Tabitha moment. We had the Selina development and just everything else, setting up the grand scheme of season 5 and where everyone is at with their own sectors. Barbara's going to want revenge on Penguin now. There is a lot a lot going on, and I just can't wait to see even more stuff. I want Lucius to give Bruce the Batclaw now, and that must be coming very, very soon, considering we saw Bruce, use the claw against Selina when she was fighting that mutant leader. But anyway, guys, I would love to know your thoughts on this episode. What was your favorite moment? Did you care that Tabitha died, or were you just not necessarily a big fan of, but maybe the fact that she's been in Gotham from, quite early on, it's still really sad to see her go. But other than that, everyone, like the video if you did enjoy this review. Obviously, reviews will be coming out every week. They probably won't be as long as this one. It was just the first episode, so I wanted to talk about quite a lot. Obviously, subscribe if you want to see more Gotham reviews just like this. As always, links are in the description down below to my Discord server. Join that so we can talk about Gotham in there and other shows and everything else. I do have a merch store as well. Pledge to me on Patreon if you want to fuel the content that I create on this channel. But other than that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Gothamites in the next video. Gotham is back, baby.